Hi everyone, Kevin here with a short video on addition rates. This is a very simple concept once you get it down, but it's particularly important to wine, so we'll spend a few minutes on it. Let's take an example. Let's look at making Kool-Aid. So say I have some water in a pitcher. Let's not say it's a quart pitcher. Let's say it is actually 2 quarts. Because the recipe for Kool-Aid is 1 cup of sugar in 2 quarts. So I'm going to add my 1 cup of sugar. And I'm going to add that to 2 quarts of water. And add a little flavoring, of course, and I've got this wonderful Kool-Aid drink. All right. What if I want to make another 2 quarts of Kool-Aid? Well, what do? Of course, I add another cup of sugar to that next 2 quarts of water. So it's always 1 cup of sugar per 2 quarts of water. No matter how many quarts I want to make, it's the same addition rate, 1 cup of sugar per 2 quarts of water. In winemaking, we think about yeast, for example. We often add that at 2 pounds of yeast per 1,000 gallons. So for every 1,000 gallons, we add 2 pounds of yeast. Our addition rate is always 2 pounds per 1,000 gallons. Or usually. It's the winemaker's choice, but most winemakers go with a standard addition of yeast of 2 pounds per 1,000 gallons. So just like Kool-Aid is 1 cup of sugar for every 2 quarts of water, yeast is 2 pounds per every 1,000 gallons. So, to continue the Kool-Aid example, let's say we were going to make a gallon of Kool-Aid. Well, a gallon is actually 4 quarts. So, we now have 4 quarts of water. And we know that for every 2 quarts, we add 1 cup of sugar. So, our addition rate is 1 cup sugar. 1 cup of sugar per 2 quarts of water. And this time, we're making 4 quarts of water. So if we multiply our addition rate times the volume that we want to make, in this case, 4 quarts, if we do the math, 4 times 1 is 4, of course, divided by 2 in the denominator, and it turns out that that would be 4 halves of sugar, cups of sugar, right? Which of course equals 2 cups of sugar. And I'm not used to using this pen on this computer. So 2 cups of sugar, all right? And you could, that's easy math. You probably saw right away. As soon as we were making 4 quarts, if we're adding 1 cup to every 2 quarts, we're going to add 2 cups to the 4 quarts of sugar. It's simple. This is our addition rate. And we can use that rate to make as many quarts as we want. No matter how many quarts we make, we add at the rate of 1 cup of sugar per 2 quarts of water. All right, pretty straightforward, pretty basic. So the rate of addition is simply the amount of something per volume. Pretty straightforward. Here's some typical addition rates. Kool-Aid, we look at cups of sugar per quart of water. And the typical recipe is 1 cup per 2 quarts. For yeast, as we mentioned, we typically look at pounds of yeast per gallon of juice. The typical addition rate is 2 pounds per 1,000 gallons. Those are conventions that are used in the recipes for Kool-Aid and for yeast in wine. We could measure yeast as pounds per liter if we chose, or as grams per liter. And in class and in a separate video on additions to wine, you'll see some of those different units. But when we talk about yeast in wine, we typically talk about pounds per 1,000 gallons. in typically 2 pounds per 1,000 gallons. With SO2 or sulfites, we add sulfites to preserve wine, of course. We tend to measure sulfites in milligrams of sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide and sulfites are synonymous, at least in typical wine usage. So we measure SO2 or sulfites in milligrams of SO2 per liter of juice or wine. So milligrams per liter. And a typical addition rate is 30 milligrams per liter. That might be how much we'd add at harvest, maybe after fermentation's complete, or after malolactic fermentation, we might add 30 milligrams per liter, kind of a typical addition rate. One thing to note is that milligrams per liter, the measure milligrams per liter, is also known as parts per million. And that's a really good thing to recognize and be familiar with in wine, okay? So parts per million is milligrams per liter, so remember that. Okay, so if we take our example of sulfites, let's say we want to add sulfites to our wine that we're going to make in class. And typically we make 9.45 liters of wine. If our addition rate of sulfites is 30 milligrams per liter, for every liter we will add 30 milligrams of sulfites or SO2. Okay? So if we're going to add 30 milligrams to every liter and we have 9.45 liters, we simply do the math, and that's not another multiplication there. That should be an equal sign. And it turns out this equals 283 milligrams of SO2. All right? So it's really important to distinguish the addition rate from the total amount that we add. The addition rate is 30 milligrams for every liter. If we multiply that by the volume of, in this case, wine, could be juice. If we multiply by the volume, then we know that, let me get this here, volume, then we get total addition, okay? So the 283 milligrams is how much we're going to add to the total volume, the 9.45 liters. It's no longer 283 milligrams per some volume. Well, it's per 9.45 liters. But that's the total we're going to add to our volume. The rate of addition is 30 milligrams per liter. All right? So distinguish those because it's really important. If you have a rate of addition, you can use that to figure out how much to add to any volume. If we had, instead of 9.45 liters, if we had 10 liters and our rate of addition was 30 milligrams per liter, it'd be 300 milligrams total addition. Okay? So please get comfortable with addition rates. It's really important. It'll be important with yeast additions, with sulfite additions, with acid additions. There are a lot of things we add to wine, and knowing and being comfortable with addition rates is really important. Okay, gang, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in class and in the next video.